What's up everybody? Welcome to part 2 of a series called The Frame, where we discuss in detail how we built out our DIY coffee truck. If you haven't seen the video prior to this, part number 1, the Frame series, I would definitely recommend you checking that out so that you understand where we are in this process. And then of course, feel free to come back and check out part 2, where we dive into the final stages of the frame and what it took to build it. So in this next part, I'm going to show you really quickly what we did in the last video, and then we'll just continue on from there. And we're back, putting together the bare bones of the frame just as we left off. Now let's get into the details of the roof structure. I really just wanted to stop and discuss the roof structure. As you can see right here, we have a bar that goes across, and basically we notched it on the left and the right hand sides in order for the angle iron to be able to slide right in there, right there. All of that was basically made in order so that it could hold up the weight of the 100-pound air conditioning unit. And then finally we worked on putting the 1" by 1" angle iron piece right here, and that's what would encase the door. We'll show you guys more about how that works here in a little bit, but not before telling you how much we love this little pupper. All right, I know I jumped ahead a little bit, but I wanted to show you guys the top view of the shell looking down. Next up, I want to show you the progress we made during the daytime.
We are back in business. We are doing work. Look at that. We still got to add a little bit of structural support from here to here. We have this window working out. It looks pretty good. So all we're going to need to do is create the door, and it will inset into that piece right there, and there will be some hinges up there, and then whoop, up it goes. So now we're working on this door back here. That's gonna get us where we need to be. Great update. This is day number 5.
6.
The frame looks pretty much finished. We still have to make the doors. We added a ton of support, some more of the curved edges. I think the Lord is telling us that we need to quit because we ran out of weld spoil for the second time today. We've been welding up a storm, and tomorrow we'll probably be welding a lot more.
You might notice that the metal looks a little raggedy here and there, but we did our best to ground down a lot of the weld bead, and it'll all get cleaned up with the wire brush prior to paint anyways. But it's all going to be covered up with aluminum. At this point, we're not worried. We just needed a flat spot so that the aluminum would have something to adhere to. And while we're here, please don't weld the inside corners of the door encasement. You don't want to cause any interferences or issues that don't allow the door to sit flat right there. And we eventually used JB Weld in the corners to make it watertight, and we also utilized weather stripping to prevent water intrusion.
We're gonna go with day number 7. We had to go get some more 1x1s to make the doors. Jeremy had the bright idea of putting these shims in the door.
Each shim ended up being 7/16 inches wide,
and then
we forced it to fit.
It definitely works now. So we have our straight door for the back.
Let's just say the doors were interesting because we designed it around the hinge, and we bought some piano hinges. The website we bought them off of call them continuous hinges. When the door is closed and the hinge is sitting there, it looks like this. And so we measured the distance between this point and this point. That came out to be about 7/16 inches. Half backwards moment for these 3 points. Make sure to tack weld your doors together as it literally sits within the shims and within the encased angle iron of the main frame. It's crucial. Your door may be slightly out of square. It would be nearly impossible to achieve by arbitrarily welding on the floor.
Then we just lay the door in there and weld it to where it should be.
Number 2, your shims are accounting for the gap needed between the frame and the actual door to make the door close without any rubbing or issues. Don't forget to consider the thickness of the trim on both the main frame and the door. So your hinge selection is going to dictate the gap between the top portion of the door, but do not use 7/16 inch around the other 3 edges because for us it was way too small and doesn't leave you much room for air. 0 room. Number 3, please don't weld your doors onto the main frame yet. That would be a mistake. We really just want to put them together here and then just set them off to the side for later on in the build. On to the next.
What else do we have going on?
Grinding off some of the rust so that we can spray paint it. And
I think our next step after this is weld some tabs going from each support to the upper support, and that will give us a place to put the wood. Day number 8. Jeremy has turned into a tab manufacturer. He's making tabs for this part right here.
Hey.
We got a lot more to make.
I'm back and I'm better than ever. The newly added pieces of wood increase the functional benefits by adding rigidity. That's a hard word to say. Gives us something to screw the wall into. It also adds a thickness to the wall so that we have a place to put the insulation. Here are some other added tips. We used a 3-inch piece of flat metal in order to craft the tabs. As mentioned, we did have to rip the 2x4 so that it can match the 2-inch piece of metal on the other piece of the wall.
Okay, it's a piece of wood that I cut. It's 2x2. 2x2. Which matches this thickness right here.
You probably saw that we drilled through each tab so that we can put a bolt with a neoprene nut on the end of it. It'd go all the way through the tab and the wood, and then it would just clamp together. We did use a level to put the wood up there and just mark where the tabs would go just to make sure that everything was perpendicular. Be sure to be strategic with the wood placement. That way you know the walls are extremely stable and they're not going to come crashing down when you're driving. Jumping ahead, just take a look at our strategy. That way you guys have an idea of kind of where we took this and how long it actually took. That's a lot of tabs and that's a lot of drilling and that's a lot of wood. So yep, we had to do the same thing to the floor so that we had something to tack the subfloor into. And lastly, you can see I'm wearing a mask because I didn't want to breathe in all the metal particles that were just floating around in the air. I think that covers everything. Enjoy the sights and sounds. Check out all these tabs for yourself. I mean, there are definitely a ton of them. We had a ton of fun doing all this, just playing. It took so much longer than we thought, but wow, we're glad that we did it.
We cut out the wood to match all these for the subfloor. Now we have to paint it with spar urethane because that could possibly be exposed to the elements.
I guess we could have went with pressure treated wood for the subfloor, but we ended up going with what we had. Break. Before we get into the painting stage, I have 2 more design features that I really need you guys to see before I move on, because if we would have caught these earlier before painting, it would have saved us some work, and so I think this is going to be a good one for you guys. So do you guys see the gap between the back of the encasement and the just piece of wood that you see right there? Just right in between that. Yep, there it is. Playing it back, you can see that the wood is sitting flat up against the 1x1 piece of metal, and I'll explain. That was done by design with finishes in mind. As you can see, the 1x1 inch extruded metal right there, and as well as on the side right there underneath the black painted wood. And finally, here's just one more bottom portion view of those metal extrusions that we welded on. The intent is to cover the gap with the aluminum piece of metal, as you can see right here in this picture. You can see the aluminum trim covering the intended area as well right here. So my stressor here is to just make sure you have 1x1 steel extruded pieces welded on there prior to paint. My second design must. Can everyone see the channel up on top with all of the holes? Let's get closer. Right there. This is actually what I'm calling a water guard, and basically we have a rubber that we purchased from Lowe's that slides within the channel and is held up with set screws in all the hole locations. So on a rainy day like today, when we're serving customers, the rubber flap will flap over and will prevent rain from going through the crack at the top of the door. For this accommodation, you have to weld several 1-inch by 1-inch pieces of angle iron to the top part of the door. Eventually you'll drill and rivet the channel through the back. All right guys, I promise you're gonna want to get some popcorn because this next part is hilarious. At least to us it was. I mean, it's 12 in the morning and we're literally about to move this big cage into the grass. It probably weighs close to 500 pounds. I don't know how we did it. All right.
We're gonna try to move this thing over there so we can spray paint it black. We just got done trying to move it, but Justin crumpled. So we're about to try to capture this on film because I just know this is gonna be good. Ah, dude, this is a good angle.
What, right on me?
Perfect.
What happened? What happened? What's wrong, buddy?
I move this out.
Buddy, pal? Do not. Y'all see that? Speeding the rest of this up for obvious reasons.
Moved it from right there all the way to right here. Time to paint before it rains tomorrow. No rust.
Shazam!
It's a little tall, but I freaking love it.
We used about 8 cans of spray paint and we even flipped it on the bottom to get that.
We don't have the doors on yet. There's one door right there. That's the back door. That piece right there will be lifted up as like a place to put the sugars and the straws. Here's this view of it. Imagine this, you walk up to this cool looking VW bus over here, and you have a countertop that goes right here. I'm sorry, like a cabinet with a cool design. Then you have the countertop that goes right here, and the barista's up here and they say, hey, do you want some coffee? And you say, yeah. They're like, what can I get you? A latte. Boom, done. Out of a cool VW bus. On happy day 10, today I'm going to be working on getting the wood slats in place.
All right, so this is going to be the last update we have prior to the next video and before we start putting on all the aluminum.
We've tightened down all these wooden pieces onto the frame, so that's great. I also made some curved wooden pieces to fit the curvature of the bus so that we have something to tack into over there. I need to make one more crossbar. Let's give you an overall look of how it's turning out.
Everybody take a deep breath. I'm going to show you guys a quick teaser for the next video as we start to prepare to put the aluminum sheet metal all over the shell of the truck. And that's when it actually starts to come together.
Finally, the day has come where we're finally going to install the sheet metal and surround this thing. And you know, we couldn't be any more excited.